In this episode, I'm going to show you how to make the starting city for your Homebrewed campaign. And I'm going to be using the 5 steps that I outlined in the previous episode. The idea here is that you can create an interesting, vibrant city that seems real to the players and they're invested in and they're connected to without having to go into a tremendous amount of work of, creating every single citizen or leading through hundreds of people or whatever. There's a way to do this that's fun and not that difficult. In fact, I'm not just going to create one city. I'm not just going to create 2 cities. But I'm going to create 3 cities. How about that? Hello again, my name is K.R. King. This is my YouTube channel dedicated to homebrewing a campaign, and I'm going to make now the 3 main cities of my campaign using the 5 steps that I outlined in the last episode. And when we're creating these cities, we're always thinking in terms of the player characters that are going to be involved in the world. Because I'm not just telling a story. This isn't a novel or a screenplay. This is an interactive process between me as the game master and the player characters. It's an organic process. They are part of the story. They help to create the story. So I'm always thinking, how do I integrate the players? What's the best way for them to be able to come up with whatever character class, whatever race, whatever background that they choose, and it's integrated into the city that I create so they feel part of the world. Because when they feel part of the world, when they're invested, they have ownership over it, they'll be committed to it. So the first step is creating the ethos, both of the campaign in general, a metagaming concept, and the cities themselves on Mellinor. I mentioned last time in terms of a campaign metagame ethos, it's sort of, do you want a Tolkien heroic fantasy where good is good and evil is evil and there's not much in between? People are basically good. Or do you want a Game of Thrones Machiavellian world where people are out for power? If you've seen the show, there's many shocking things that happen on the show because of that. So in this campaign, I'm going to be a little bit south of Tolkien, what I call near heroic fantasy. And this means that, lawful good characters tend to be the leading characters of our cities. They tend to be the leading characters in our campaign. Most people are basically good, but there are neutral people, and there are situations in which neutral characters have their goals, their desires, and you may have player characters who want to be neutral people. Again, I'm not going to recommend evil. We'll talk about that more. But the point is that even lawful good people realize in a near heroic fantasy that they need neutral people. Then we have the ethos of our cities. What is it that people value and that strive for? What is it that motivates them? And I'm going to say for this example, it's going to be family and religion. Now, there's nothing unusual about this in terms of D&D campaigns. I'm using this kind of as a standard example, but I'm going to explore this a little bit. I'm going to explore what it means when you have the importance of family and religion in a D&D world of civilization. Blood is thicker than water. Family ties are very important. Taking care of your family, being part of a family. But it also stretches into the society, how it's ruled. The civilization is divided in different families, different clans, as it were. And the player characters are going to think of themselves in this world. You are so-and-so, son or daughter of so-and-so. And this, when they create their backgrounds, knowing this, they're going to think about this. And then I'll come in as the GM and decide the people that I've created in my city, how the player characters can link up to this. Now, the religious aspect, I'm saying that this is important partly because of the mechanics of the game. This is a polytheistic world in which the gods very directly affect this world. We have commune spells, heals, we raise the dead. It's very clear the gods take an active interest in the affairs of the world. We also, again, it's polytheistic. We have many different religions. And I'm going to say in this world, they're not really competing against one another. Everyone respects other people's religions. Now, the evil gods are opposed to the lawful good gods in some profound sense. We have a god as a patron, but we also may pay homage to gods. If you go on a trip, you may go to a shrine for a travel god and make an offering. You may ignore that shrine. The one thing, though, is if you desecrate that shrine, people are not going to appreciate that. Even if they don't necessarily worship that god or consider themselves a patron, they don't like that. The gods are an important part of the world and should be respected. The next thing that I'm going to do is create what everybody knows. And by everybody, I really mean your player characters. What do they know about these cities and towns just growing up there? This is my Wikipedia page. Now, if we look at our map, we have 3 cities. And as I said in my introduction, I'm going to do all 3 of these. We have the city we're going to start with, which is Dramos here in the center. Then we have Elsinox, which is the largest and first city on the continent of Mellinor. And then I have Maneth, which is this wild frontier town. So the 3 cities are going to reflect different aspects of this family and religious ethos that I talked about at the beginning. Now, even though Elsinux is the largest city on the continent of Melanor and might seem a logical choice to be our starting point, when I was creating my map, I had said I wanted to make Dramos the starting point, and I had a kind of reasons for this. I'll go into those. When the first powerful families realized the potential for wealth from Melanor, they flooded in, and they had the money to buy the sailing ships, to pay for soldiers to protect themselves, and they brought their hierarchical structure where powerful families ran things. So these 5 powerful families that I'll go into when I discuss Elsinux, they ran the show, and yet there were many people that came here for freedom. They wanted to be away from the strictures of Ambar, who resented this. And this led to probably 90 years after the founding of Elsinux, a group of adventurers led by a wizard named Austin and a bard named Dramos. They had heard rumors of an Orcan tribe with jewels and gems. They found this tribe, they had a huge battle, they defeated them, and they had a huge score. Gold, gems, and jewels, very finely crafted. The orcs claimed that their ancestors had made these, but the adventurers were very suspicious. This craftsmanship, this came from somewhere else, but no one knew. Was it a shipwreck? No one knows. The point was they were rich. And they formed a keep called Dramos' Keep, and pretty soon they decided, you know what, people began to come there, let's make a settlement here. And this grew, it became just known as Dramos. And they had this idea that we're all equal, all of us can decide our fates. Now eventually what this came down to was you had a council of 5 people picked by the top 100 citizens of Dramos. And this 100 came from wealth or prestige. 100 is the power block that picks the 5 members of the council. And this is what's so great for your player characters, is they'll have a connection to this 100, these 100 leading citizens, that they wouldn't have being first level in a huge place like Elsinux. They won't be on the 100, they're only first level characters, but they'll have relations, they'll have family members or people they know that are part of this, and it'll help invest them. They'll also have this sense of freedom, of wanting to go your own way, of making your own fortune, and not having it taken away by powerful interests, these family members in Elsinux or in Ambar. We're going to start here. I'm going to go over the council members because these are the leading figures, again, that your player characters would know about. And you're going to see the influence of family here right away because Austin IV, the grandson of Austin, is a leading citizen. He's on the council. He's a wizard. He runs the Wizards Guild. Austin's greatest ally is Zaxos, who is the head patriarch of the Bacab Temple, of Temple of Magic, and he too is a wizard cleric. And these two are kind of leaders on the council. The 100 trust them, and they are trustworthy. They're good men. They're dedicated to helping the city. So when I go into discussing Elsinux and the 5 families, one of them is going to be the Ezrin family, the Ezrin dynasty. This is a trading empire. They're the richest family on Melanor. They control all the trade back to the original continent of Ambar because they can build ships big and strong enough to take some of the really severe storms. They are also the only family that has interests in all 3 settlements. So they have someone on the council. Her name is Shauna. She's the daughter of the matriarch of the Ezrin clan, Parthenia, back in Elsinux, and she's there to represent their interests. Again, they have a lot of money. If they have some works they need to do or raising troops, the Ezrin clan has money to lend, but that gives them power. The 4th member is an elven monk, and her name is Brenna, and she's kind of the people's champion. Because again, this family structure, the 100 form sort of an aristocracy. They're rich, they're powerful, they run the trade. And a lot of simple people, fishermen, workers, cobblers, a blacksmith, a livery stable worker, who's looking out for their interests? Well, Brenna is, and she's very active. A lot of the 100 don't like her, but Austin and Zaxos do. They support her on the council because they know she keeps the peace in a way. When the people feel like they have a representative who's not some, puppet of the rulers, they feel like it's peace and tranquility, as it were, in the city. And then the final member of the council is Rance. He's a dwarven fighter. He's a hero of the Orcan Wars, a very powerful fighter. He's totally interested in the city guard, which he runs, security for the town. His daughter Minetta is a paladin, a dwarven paladin of Moradin, the dwarven god, because again, the gods are important here. The dwarven community in Dramos is a big one. Across the river, if we look this Asper's Landing, and this is where the halflings and the gnomes tend to live. If you have player characters that want to be halflings or gnomes, this is going to be the area. I have some family ideas drawn up. I want to do the 3 cities first. So in outlining the major figures on this council, I did what I called rule number 3, the higher up you go, the less you know. I don't need to know these characters' characteristics, the magic items they have, because the player characters aren't going to be interacting with them. They're not going to have face-to-face stuff. They're just going to know about them. I don't really know what the mayor of my town is like, or the president, or any of this stuff, but I know who they are. I also did step number 4, which was enemies and allies. Obviously, on the city council, you have more rivalries. You have Austin and Zaxos as very good friends, very strong allies. You then have Shauna, who's kind of a rival. She's a representative of this other family. She's on the council because she's rich, but she's kind of almost an enemy here, right? And then Brenna, certainly Austin and Zaxos need her. And Brenna obviously supports the common folk, again, farmers and average workers. So she's always going to have a little bit of an opposition, almost like a union leader type thing. And then Rance is clearly allied to Austin and Zaxos, but then there's sometimes a little suspicion. He's a fighter. His daughter's this paladin. And these guys are not totally committed to the security in the way that he wishes they were. So there's always a little bit of rivalry going on. So you always make sure you cover these two things. And then, of course, the integration of the players. Once they roll up their characters, they give you the family background. Then I'm going to come up with characters in the town that are going to make the connections to this 100. They're going to start at the tavern, Zodi's Tavern, but they're going to meet people there, at other adventurers, other people that are going to give them ideas of their first adventures, none of which are really going to concern these leading citizens. They're going to go out and they're going to discover things and fight monsters and all that kind of fun stuff you do at the lower levels, low-level monsters. But they have this knowledge. This place is real. And we're going to make those next level of characters once we know who the player characters are and their backgrounds. And so when I do the next 2 cities, I will be doing this, the higher up you go, the less you know. And I will be mentioning the enemies and allies within the ruling class. Although in the town of Maneth, when you have a one-man rule, kind of like everybody is sort of his ally and his enemy at the same time, right? So you may want to do the characteristics, by the way, and all the magic items of these characters. If you've got the ruler of a city, and let's say he's got a crystal ball or something where he can scry, or, that makes a difference, you can do that. But just remember, even if he does have that, why is he scrying on first-level guys sitting in Zodi's Tavern, right? Unless, in terms of their background, there is some direct connection, then you may have to do that. You may just enjoy doing that. You may enjoy creating these characters. But concentrate on the people that are going to be directly interacting with your player characters, because that's going to be more fruitful. So I'm going to say that Elsinox is the oldest city on the continent of Melanor. This is where Kroll made his landing point. This is where the first settlers came. This is where the powerful families who saw the opportunity of Melanor to make money and spread their influence came and established the cities. It has a very rigid family structure in terms of who rules it. We're going to have 5 families that rule the city. So I'm going to go over these families kind of quickly because, first of all, we're going to start in Dramos. I'm going to pay more attention to that. But this is basically what people know. The Valerian dynasty is headed up by Morgana. She is a very lawful, good cleric, and her son is a paladin of this temple. Again, they do government, clerical, and they provide some of the military leadership. The Ascanos dynasty, headed by Minos, a fighter. They are merchants in terms of activities within the city themselves, sort of land-based activities, agriculture, mining, this sort of thing. Then you have the Danarith dynasty, which is the wizards and spellcasters. Nelox is this wizard who's associated with this, but many people of this family, this is the one that's kind of the most diffuse in terms of not by blood, but more by spellcasting. Now, I already talked a little about the Ezran dynasty when I was discussing Shauna, the daughter of the matriarch Parthenia, who's operating out of Dramos. So here in Elsinox, again, Parthenia runs it, very powerful, very rich, very envious of Morgana, the head of the Valerian dynasty, because she is so beloved by the people, whereas Parthenia is known to be a bit of a Lady Macbeth, a bit of a schemer. Again, her wealth is very much against her, and her alignment. People know she's not this lawful, good person like Morgana. And you have the Holzen dynasty. This is a family that is concerned with a lot of the workers, a lot of the artisans in the guilds. It's kind of the lower class family structure. It's the largest by number, but again, with this class distinction, its power is kind of diffused. Then we have the town of Maneth, and this is this wide open town, and here is where you have the town that truly rejected the idea of family structure. So what happens is you get one family rule. We have this rogue Wesgar. He's the richest guy in town. He owns this block-long tavern called Wesgar's Gilded Palace, where you can get and do anything you want. His wife, Xena, is a cleric of the Trickster Temple. His sons and daughters run all the major business interests. You can come there and you can do whatever you want as long as, one, you pay your tribute, right, your street tax to Wesgar and his family, and two, your interests don't get in the way of his interests. So there are the three cities. Now, in terms of your player characters, when you give them this information, it's going to be written down, in an email, or you're going to hand them some paper, whatever, or just tell them verbally. You're not going to necessarily say, watch this YouTube video. And again, there might be stuff in here that you don't want them to know. You don't want them to quite know the rivalries. Certainly, if there's magic items, certainly there might be knowledge. So you're going to give them even more of a generalized view of the leading figures of these three cities. But I wanted to do it in this format to show you that it is possible to do this fairly quickly and give the characters a sense, wow, this is real. They've really done a lot of work. And we'll talk later, a big technique of being a game master is making it look like you know what you're doing, right? Even when you don't. Because if the player characters see behind the facade, if they see the man behind the curtain, they can lose interest. So we're giving this in some ways a facade of a complete world. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe, leave some comments. Tell me what you liked, tell me what you didn't like. Next time I'm going to be doing dungeons, which I always enjoy dungeons. I have many different ideas about what makes good dungeons. In the meantime, keep playing D&D and tell somebody else about it.